Okay, so it's time to install the Canards, just loosely before I think about installing the servo, and this is a pretty straightforward process. So you can see that we have a nice, it looks like aluminum shaft on here, and it is solid all the way through. And so where that goes obviously is on the side of the jet. You have your access hole for the Canards. That's this guy right here in the middle of your screen right now. So this needs to slide in through there, and as I slide this in, it feels like there is quite a bit of resistance, not too much, but the hardware kit comes with these clamps, and these are what are going to be used to secure the Canard in place inside. So you can see that we pinch these two 4mm screws, and that tightens up the hole around the Canard shaft. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these out, and then what I'm gonna do is apply some lube onto the shaft, because it feels essentially like the shaft is gonna be rotating in here, and there are no bearings, so it's just a looks like a carbon fiber tube that this whole thing rotates in. So what I'd like to do is lube that. Lube of choice is this BVM dry lube. That stuff will go on wet, but it will dry. So that means that there's not going to be dust, or it's not going to gum up. So that's the good stuff. And that will at least lubricate the shaft inside the carbon fiber tube. So just gonna install that in there and just work it. Yeah, that feels much better. So what I want is just enough resistance. I don't want it to be too loose, but I also don't want it to be over tight. So we're gonna do that on the other side before we clamp it down. I made one small modification here because the curvature here was not matching up with this section, so it would rub. So all I did was 3D print a tiny spacer right there. The inner diameter of that is about 8.5 millimeters. Outer diameter is about 12. The thickness about 1.8 millimeters. And now, when I install this Canard and I fully seat it in, I can get all the movement that I want. And I'm obviously going to match that on the other Canard on this side, just so that I make sure the spacing is even. The hardware package, I found these ball links, and I think I found the rods that are for the Canard, and those are going to be about 50 millimeters long. And so I'm gonna thread them. You can see I've already started the process in here, and fit them into the Canard there. In your hardware package are these angle brackets, and that's what I'm gonna use to mount my servos onto the deck in there. So we'll get those done and mount it in there. The setup I'm going for, so we're gonna use one long 25T, and the reason I wanted this long is just because I'm gonna try to do braking, so where like the Canards kind of go into that position there. So to do that, because I'm gonna be using this too, I need something long so that you can see obviously it's not gonna clear the servo, so I need this long. Hopefully that's not gonna be a problem. I know it reduces my resolution, but we'll see where that goes. Hopefully there's not too much Canard needed for takeoff. So I'm gonna mount this and see how that goes. All right, so to secure the servo linkage to the Canards, I have these are M3 by 12 millimeter screws, and these are M3 lock nuts. I did not find lock nuts in my hardware kit, so you might have to find those yourself. And so what I'm gonna do is, you can see that I've already mocked up sort of one of the canards and how they're going to sit. Basically, they're going to sit sort of in that fashion, like that, with the screws facing obviously down, so in that fashion. And then I'm going to have to tighten these. So what I'm going to start with is obviously putting that in place like that, tightening this through, and then once we're done with that, we'll tighten the whole assembly and test that we get, first of all, the correct neutral position. There's a line on the side of the fuselage which I'll show, and then the movement, make sure we get what the manual requires us to get. So the way I figured out how to do this is to bring the servo arm all the way forward, and then that brings these arms out and clamps out. So then now I can properly tighten these guys. We'll see if that works, but so far it's looking good. So now that those guys are nice and tightened, we're gonna go insert them into the canard, tilt the canards until the neutral position is reached. So on the jet we have a good neutral position marker, so that's this line right here. Let's see if we can get a close up. So you can see that line right there. So we're gonna match up the canards with that line, just like that. So you can see that's matched up, and then we're gonna screw these guys onto the actuation rods. Alright, so I have the servo powered on and it's in a neutral position, and you can see I've adjusted the canards so that they are neutral per that line, the datum on the fuselage. And so now, because I like this position, but I can't actually tighten those collars around the shafts for the canard, what I'm going to do is use a M3 lock nut. So you can see I have one right in here. And I'm going to drop that into here and use that to lock the position of the canard on the rod. And then once that's done, I can go ahead, power off the servo, flip the canards up, and then actually tighten these two screws. So first of all, I'm just going to get this in place because I like where the canard neutral is, and I like the spacing. So in here what I've done is just push the collar as close as possible to the rod here, and then made sure that the canard on the front lines up with the datum on the fuselage. So, and then we're going to lock that position. That's one done, and then we're going to work on the second one. Again, we repeat the same process. M3 lock nut, we're going to put some Loctite, and we're going to drop that in here and lock that rod in place. One more spot check here to make sure that I like the placement of the canard before I lock it in place. Okay. Alright. The canards are pretty much level with that line on both sides. So that's the left side. Sorry, that was the right side, and this is the left side. So I'm gonna need to adjust that a little bit, but we want that in line with that line. As you can see, the servo is attached via 4 screws, so 2 on the side to the L bracket and the other 2 on the other side. And then we're using a fairly long arm. I may decide to shorten that arm or drop that screw maybe 2 holes or 3 holes down. We'll see how that goes, because I think right now I have way too much throw, but we'll see what happens. So looks like the canard's done. Servo's powered, and so I think everything seems like it's working correctly. I'll be able to do my braking, so that's servo all the way over there. And then for the throw, I think it recommends 20 to 25 millimeters, and I am definitely getting that throw from this setup right here.